Thank you.
Okay, I'm calling the meeting to order, and we have a roll call now. Marilyn Minish-Bucci,
Alec McMurray.
Barb Fish.
Mary Ellen Anderson.
Deborah O'Gara.
Lizzie Thompson.
Tara.
and we have a visitor, Gretchen Pilar here. So has everybody had a chance to read? I hope you've read over everything.
Mhm.
So number 2, we don't really need amendment, but approval of the meeting agenda.
I approve that I move that we approve the meeting agenda. Isn't that right?
Okay, it's
Thank
been
you.
moved and seconded that we, approval of the agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So, persons to be heard related or unrelated. Gretchen, did you want to speak?
I just really hope that, it's seriously considered, because my dad has taught a lot of people here in town and coached. And if his eyesight would allow and his physical being would allow, he would still be doing it. I know he's done poetry classes after he retired, and so I just hope it's considered. He is a good man, he's cared about a lot of people here in town, so I guess that's my 2 cents.
Okay, and then, Gretchen's cousin submitted a letter, and I will be reading that into the record. And I want to, just in case you didn't read it, his second paragraph says this is private. He doesn't wish it to be shared, but Karen made sure he knew that if it was read at the library board meeting, it is online because it's public. Our meetings are all
And he was
public.
okay with that.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So when I say who I am, so I'm gonna start it by saying, I'm gonna read this letter. I'm Marilyn Minish-Bucci, and I'm the chair of the library board. Good afternoon. My name is David Ribbick. I am the nephew of Eli Ribbick, whom you know as Lee Ribbick. I live in Milford, Michigan with my wife and 2 daughters. I trust that all of you know Lee, are a friend of, or a neighbor, likely were taught by Lee in school growing up or on the basketball court. My intent here is not to tell you about a man you might already know, or talk my way out of paying $5,000 for something that I hope you see as a privilege to represent as a community leader. This is private and I don't wish it to be shared, but I wanted you to know a little more about the man you may think you know and how he got to Alaska from Michigan and from Detroit to Petersburg. I'll try and keep this brief and hope my sometimes fuzzy 66-year-old memory serves, but I will get the details mostly right, given my dad told me this many years ago as a young boy. My uncle is from Hamtramck, Michigan. He grew up there, went to school there, and got his bachelor's and master's degree from Wayne State University, paid in large part by the government for military service. He also met and married my Aunt Gail there as well. In 1967, he was serving in the National Guard. 1967 was a terrible time in Detroit. Riots tore the city apart geographically, figuratively, and racially. My gentle uncle was witness to much of the horror that time in Detroit served up nightly. At an inflection point in his young life, he tried to chart a course for himself. He loved to read and most importantly, write. Poetry mostly, and did so all of his life. He loved teaching young people. He loved talking about reading and writing and encouraged me endlessly to write. He would tell me to read everything you can, even the back of a cereal box. That's how you get better, and when you write, remember the secret of good writing is to edit ruthlessly. Upon graduating, he took the first out-of-town teaching job he found on the board, Tooksuk Bay, Alaska. From icy Tooksuk to Bethel to Nunivak and ultimately to Petersburg, he followed his passion to teach young people and to write about his adopted state of Alaska. From its flora and fauna, outdoor life, salmon fishing, humpback whales, and also to its many challenges as well. Always upbeat, always smiling, always positive, always looking forward, he was simply the best ambassador for Alaska and for Petersburg and the people he had come to love. Moving to Petersburg was the best decision he ever made. I, of course, was devastated when he left. It might have well been Mars. But as I got older, I was able to take several trips to Petersburg, first with my mom, dad, brother, and sister, and then as a guide for Green Rocks Lodge across the way from Packey's, which my uncle owned for years, and then was lucky enough to bring my wife and kids there. We still talk about these trips. Scandia House, crab pizza, waiting tide pools with my girls. We've even been to the Petersburg Public Library. It looks fabulous, truly not sucking up here. I learned to love Alaska through the eyes and writing of my uncle in the many years that followed. His work with the Petersburg Marine Mammal Society, I am also a benefactor with Barry Bracken, is a great example of how he plowed passion into progress for the community. When I first heard about the requirements to donate $5,000 to the library, I must admit it felt unseemly. It felt like a fee to be paid for advertising, like sponsored by Fred's Camry. That missed the whole point I was hoping to convey. Yes, I know my uncle's poetry is not Brian or Tennyson, and he never used 7 words when 5 could do. He never used flowery language for the sake of vocabulary. He is more visceral than that in the equivocation between Lee
You
Ribbitt's
missed a line. Sorry,
collected, I'm sorry.
you missed a line.
I
In that,
did.
in that.
Oh,
way.
I'm sorry, okay. His is a more visceral than that, and in that way, perhaps more relatable, especially to the young people than at Tennyson. Please forgive any equivocation between Lee's collected works and that of Lord's, Tennyson, and Byron. My request is rather as a tribute or dedication to a man that embodied goodness, teaching, writing about his Petersburg community and family mostly. Will I find a way to pay the additional money if the board requires me to do so? It misses the entire point. I just wanted to honor the life of an honorable man who has given so much to his community through his life's work. That is why I commissioned a local artist to create the sign, hoping it can find its way to a wall in the library next to the small poetry books that my uncle can see before he's gone. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, David Ribbit. So then we will move along here to, under new business. I'm gonna read what we have here, and then I will, entertain a motion. And then if anybody wants me to read parts of what the policies are, I can do that to clarify things. But we aren't going to discuss until we've made a motion. Okay, Robert's rules. Okay, A, consideration of waiving donation requirement for naming a section of the adult nonfiction collection. The board is asked to consider waiving the $5,000 requirement to name the poetry section of the adult nonfiction collection in honor of Lee Ribbitt. The $5,000 donor level was established during the capital campaign for a new library. At that time, 8 donors contributed at that level. These donations are recognized by the engraved wooden blocks displayed with the books. The library's donor recognition policy is attached. And you might have noticed, we do have the examples here, which we can talk about after we have the motion.
May I ask for clarification?
Yes,
It says in his letter that he hired a local artist,
yep,
and then it says here artwork by Natalia Lolitz, Milford, Michigan.
right,
So local in Michigan.
In
but
Michigan.
not here.
Oh,
Yep.
And we
Thank
did,
you for
we
that
did try, but it just didn't, it never came together, which is why he ended up going with somebody from there.
Oh,
Okay,
one other
so-
question about the letter.
Okay,
One at the very end, before we move on, and we're still fresh with the letter.
right,
At the very end of his letter, because is why I commissioned a local artist to create the sign, hoping it can find its way to a wall in the library next to his small poetry books. Is he wanting it just with these books or with the poetry collection in general?
Poetry collection in general.
Got it, okay. Just clarifying, because I hadn't noticed that the first read through and just thought, well, maybe.
okay,
So for discussion purposes, I would move that we consider waiving the donation requirement for naming a section in the adult nonfiction collection.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch exactly what you said.
That's exactly what I said.
For discussion purposes,
To
I
wait,
just move that we
Okay.
consider waiving the
Consider.
donation.
okay?
So I'm making a motion
I'll second.
that we consider waiving the donation requirement for naming a section of the adult nonfiction.
I second it, or did you already do that?
And very quietly. You can do it.
Okay, so we're open for discussion now. So, anybody have questions? Barb?
I just have a comment. All the artwork in the building is local artwork, meaning it's from local artists here, not, I mean, that's beautiful. I love that, what she produced. But it's not a Petersburg artist, and that's, I think that has to be taken into consideration. And everything that the wooden blocks are absolutely gorgeous, and I think it's nice to be consistent.
So Barb, we don't have to talk about that.
Oh,
Because that's the.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. On B,
I'm
when we
sorry.
get to that, we will be talking about that, okay?
Sorry.
So we are specifically
Just
talking about
waiving.
waiving of the donation.
We're specifically
Oh,
talking
okay.
about waiving the $5,000. Yes, yes.
Specifically about waiving the $5,000. My husband and I have lived here for 12 years, and I know most of the people who have donated, and I know your father, but I have a little bit of a problem with waiving the $5,000 when so many others have paid the $5,000, they've donated the
Right.
$5,000. Specifically, I mean, the first one I ever saw of the wooden boxes was Brian and Marjorie Past. And I just thought that was the coolest thing, that they donated money, and the whole cookbook section is,
Right.
I don't know what that is. It's there. I really felt good about that. And I know them personally, and I don't know your father that well. But my only comment is I really like the wooden boxes and how it's consistently used through the library. And if we want to waive the $5,000, I don't know. I need to think about that, and I have a little bit of an issue with it. But
Okay.
I don't know what anybody else thinks.
So-
I mean,
Go ahead, Lizzie.
I understand that.
Yeah.
And, you know, my heart initially, because I adore Lee.
Yes.
Was like, well, what, yeah, well,
Yeah.
you know, but then I started thinking about opening that can
Yeah.
of worms. And that the protocol is not that, you know, we want this, and so we made a sign and we did this thing, and now we don't wanna pay for it.
Right.
It feels a little bit like, oh, wow, yeah, you know, I get that, it's very emotional. But that's not how it works.
Yes.
I guess, you know, this is tough.
It's a
Yeah.
tough one.
It's a
It's
tough
very
one.
hard.
Deb?
So I just have a question mostly for background because I wasn't here, I didn't live here during the capital campaign. So I think for me to really form an opinion, because I understand what folks have already said. But what was the purpose of the capital campaign? How long did it last? When, I mean, there's no dates on here. When was the capital campaign? And what was the purpose for establishing that level? Other than raising money.
Right.
Which-
Yes, it
Yeah.
is.
And then how long ago was the capital campaign? I mean, is it still happening? Not that I've heard about, but I'm all for following policies, and written policies are the best,
Right.
which this is. So, but I just want to know some of that back.
Sure. Tara, do you want to address it, or Mary Ellen?
Yeah.
Mary Ellen.
Start? Well, I don't know the dates. You might remember the dates.
That's gonna be a
better.
little bit harder, but I would say it ran from, well, we finished off around 2013, just from.
The collection of funds.
Yeah.
We were required, in order to get the massive grants from Rasmussen to, and I think there were others as well, required in-kind donations from people in the community, including the tax that we fought. to
Yeah,
get
the bond.
The bond.
Well,
We had to have a bond passed. to show widespread community support, and we had to raise cash within the community, and so.
At that level, it's about $350,000. That's what we needed to raise from within the community,
Right.
just in the form of cash donation.
Plus the bonds.
Seemed like.
Yes,
Plus
plus
the
the
bond amount.
Yeah.
Phone calls. And some of the background to that is that, I don't know if you guys all know the 4 Acre Group in, Anchorage. Is that we received training, the capital campaign committee received some training. It's been, 5 years before we actually moved into the library. We received training from the 4 Acre Group. How do you raise that much money? You know, to get small,
Right.
in such a small town, and that is the strategy for capital campaigns to raise, say, more than $10,000. You set a high goal like that to, you know, be a catalyst for all those other funding sources. You create this, this list essentially where you itemize things like the Ruth, the conference room, as you can see, it's named after Ruth Sandvik. Her family donated $25,000. For the room. And so we created this list of areas that people could donate and have named in the honor of their families. And those have, and I remember when the capital campaign did that, it felt very, it really did.
But this is, we were assured that this is how these things are done,
Yeah.
this is how it has to be done, because we had to have a structured this level, this level, this level, you know, because there were different levels of donors, and then we had to start calling people and, you know, and put it out there that we were doing this, and it was very awkward. Yeah, but it's the way that we got the library financed.
Yeah, we did achieve our goal of $250,000.
We did, we still collect, so when people do donate, say they buy a fish, or they do another donation for a section, say I wanted to do one for, I don't know, boating or something,
Yeah,
or something.
or most recently, the Jensen Community Room.
Yes.
Right, and also the Marie Giesbrecht bench. So we've had 2 donations of this nature since the not conclusion of the capital campaign, but since
Yeah.
we raised that 350, we've had 2 other significant donations, and we used that same structure to
And
do
then
that.
that money continues to go into the endowment fund, which is invested through the Rasmussen Foundation, right?
Alaska Community.
Alaska Community Foundation, thank you.
And Kara, if you could give us like things that we've been using the money for, like the totem pole, right? Wasn't that?
That was put in part by actually donations that were different from this.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, and actually what we've been using, the money is actually just like the donation, from, for the Helmy Jensen. Those actually have just gone into library's general endowment, and we actually haven't used it for anything. It's kind of like
Oh,
an
okay.
emergency fund, like the roof ends up leaking or something.
Can you say how much that was?
How much?
The bench and the Helmy Jensen?
5,000 for the bench and 100,000 for Helmy Jensen.
And just for a date, on the page 4 at the top where it says donor recognition, it was approved by the library board in 2/22/12. So these policies that we looked at, that which Tara included, that's when they were approved.
Does that kind of flesh out your understanding?
It does. I mean, that's actually really helpful,
Yeah,
because essentially it started in 2012. And the policies as well as the fundraising has not stopped yet.
Right,
Yeah.
the policies
And
have not.
actually, I would say the capital campaigns preceded the policy. So we did the
Oh.
capital campaign, and it was like an active process at the time. And then when it was sort of starting to wind down, which was around 2020, then the board set this policy just so that there was, because we realized we didn't have one, and then what we were doing was kind of a big deal, and we needed to be consistent to respect the incredibly generous donations.
Just a couple of things. First, I just want to say, my cousin put this together, so I'm totally behind on the 8 ball. I'm the middle person on my father. I mean, it's kind of weird, right? But, first of all, I mean, I think it's stated in here that he had talked a number of times to different people. And so why was this policy not handed to him at that point? That's one of them. And,
Can I address that so that you have, so I talked with Tara about that.
Mhm.
And so she had the initial contact with him, as it says here, 11/9/2021.
Mhm.
And he said he was gonna call her the next day,
Mhm.
but he did not. And then the next communication she had from him was after you came in and talked.
Mhm.
And then he emailed her again on the 24th of this year, 2024.
Wow.
And she looked through her text messages and her emails back, and she could not find any other
Yeah,
communication
it's
with
my
her.
understanding he had come, or he had talked to other people too when he had come in, when he was in town, so,
Right,
but I don't know.
but he wasn't obviously then given maybe the correct information about the policies, or didn't speak to Tara or any more communication. So just, I'm sorry, that's
Okay,
what.
and my other thing about the boxes is, I mean, who knew anything about it having to be in a box form? You know what I mean?
Well,
I don't know, I just feel like you guys are gonna make your decision and that's fine, and I can't really argue any point sitting where I'm sitting, but I think it's pretty heartbreaking to have it brought up to my dad, and now I have to go back and tell him that it's not gonna happen, and I think that's rather insulting considering that
but
it's,
the board did not bring it up to your dad.
This is the first the board has been even involved in this process, and Tara was not also involved for a number of years. And he just happened to talk to
yeah, no, and I
Yeah,
understand,
yeah.
but you get where I'm coming from.
Yes. Oh, yes,
You know,
yeah.
I
It's a
mean,
horrible
It
situation.
Right,
is.
it is.
It's
and,
awful for everyone, because I
Yes.
absolutely adore your dad. You know, he taught me a lot. I wasn't his student, but I worked with him
Mhm.
anyways.
I feel to do what is being asked of us to do right now, we would have to change policies, and that's gonna take a
you can't
while.
make an exemption, all things.
If we make an exemption, then we don't have policies. I mean, I don't know, I mean, I feel that,
100% correct.
no,
I
and
mean,
that's true, but
let's face
it-
it, I
it
mean, there's
just-
always something
So
that,
can I make a suggestion that if we're gonna continue having a back and forth
Oh,
discussion,
I'm
that
sorry.
we go off the record and maybe suspend the meeting, or we either continue the meeting or we have that. I'm not,
no,
Yeah.
you probably have more knowledge
Yeah.
than me about
so
what to do.
I'm not trying to shut you or anybody else
Yeah.
on the board up, but, there's a motion on the table.
Right.
And the board needs to have the opportunity to have deliberations to
Mhm.
be able to make that,
Mhm.
make a decision.
Right.
And I'm really happy that you came to represent your father. And I agree with everybody, I think, at this table, that it's really a heartbreaking and very emotional issue. I'm not trying to ignore that. But I think if we have the space to make the decision and deliberate so that we make the best decision for the library, and if we have any questions for you, that we then have that, but the continued dialogue is
Right.
not.
Thank you very much, Deb. So it'd be helpful if I
I'll just
read
step out.
little portions of the
I actually don't
policy.
think that you need to.
You don't-
Does
Wait,
it,
wait a minute, what just happened?
Yeah, why are you leaving?
because I'm not a part of your guys' decision, I mean, it was my,
Yeah,
you know, I mean, I was told that we don't wanna go back and forth, and I don't either, so,
But if you
it's
stay and
ultimately-
are able to answer any questions that we have, that would be very helpful.
So are we gonna table the decision for now?
I mean, I don't know what.
Shall we table this? It would be great. Can we do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
yes.
I kind of took that, if you guys wanted to. do that as a
No,
board.
what we need to do is possibly table that, can we table that decision for now? And then was there other things that we needed to discuss as well? Is that what kind of thing?
Is this an opportunity to ask Gretchen's questions?
no,
Oh,
because like Deb said, we need to address the motion. So does anybody want me to read parts of the policy to help you understand what
So
our,
I guess my question is there, or has there since 2012, or even before that, a situation where the policy, whether it was written or not written, because there was a capital gains thing happening before the policies were written.
Right.
So was there any, history or practice of waiving the standard practice or the written policies? That anybody knows about,
Not that I know
because that's good information to have.
of. Right.
Like I mentioned earlier, there's been two significant donations, or two naming, I should say, I should start with that part. There's been two naming instances since the conclusion of the capital campaign. And it's been for the bench for Marie Giesbrecht, and it's been for the Helmy Jensen community. And both of those, the donation requirement set by the capital campaign was met.
So can I comment on a couple parts of the
Yeah,
policy?
yeah.
On 13-1, naming and name recognition.
Mm-hmm.
The second half says the board of the. You want to find it, so you can follow along, 13.1, under the donor recognition.
Page 4.
policy. And I'm starting partway through 13.1. The board of the Petersburg Public Library shall evaluate proposals for naming and name recognition for those persons or corporations that have had a positive impact on the library through philanthropic contributions or through exceptional achievement in service to Petersburg Public Library and the profession of public librarianship. So there, it's all very specifically librarian related.
Mm-hmm.
And then these are, I'm trying to get to the core parts that might yay or nay us in one way
Yep.
or another. And then further in 13.2, under naming, it's the fourth
Mhm.
paragraph down. Naming refers to titling a building, facility, room, special use area, specialized collection, or a special purpose endowment. The naming shall be considered either by philanthropy or as an honorific. So technically speaking, through philanthropy, which is giving money, or as an honorific.
Mm-hmm.
That gives me a little concept of some wiggle room here. The name of the individual or corporate entity shall preface the title of the room, blah, 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 and then it goes into specifics about how to do it. But I thought, well, that is the only thing I could see. Everything else points to monetary philanthropy. So I wondered about clarifying that. What does that mean when you say or as an honorific?
Sounds like that's at your discretion.
Right.
It kind of does to me. Everything else says it has to be related to library. I, could see that. I mean. I don't know. I was gonna say Lee is.
So I spotted that too when I was reading through this policy, and I have a couple of things underlined, and that's certainly one of them.
I have it underlined also.
And so my question then is for those who wrote the policies and the board members who were on the board who put this through, would that carry any other meaning? I mean, would the purpose of that sentence carry any other meaning than to allow some kind of don't make me say that word,
Philanthropic. Philanthropic.
yes, that word, purpose. Is anybody at the table here that can speak to this sentence that was written?
That was so much word crafting back
I
then.
know.
A lot of it was honestly, we would lift from other resources that were already in place and then we would fine tune them. I can't remember exactly what our intent was at that particular one. Were you on the board then? What do you remember? Foggy back there, isn't it?
That, I just remember that, we made it so that you could ideally read it and understand it.
Yeah.
But that was our great effort. And, so, and I'm doing a lot of work now to try to exactly, put my mind around that a little bit, but here I have so in a way that this is getting, this is getting characterized in a couple of different ways. In other words, the whole thing is really, could be characterized as a money-making scheme. We need to build a library, and that's what it's all based on, really. I mean, no, this is a money-making scheme. I mean, I want to use it
Strategy.
with a strategy, as much
Yeah.
honor as possible. but-
Right.
And so, and that's true, and so the way it gets characterized in the proposal here, can I talk about this now? I mean, this is just, but it's not really, the way that, your cousin characterized the situation, seems to be,
Oops.
I'm confused, I'm trying to understand that also, David. Because it seems like there's lack of memory or lack of consistency and lack of clear motivation. To me, I have a hard time with such a variety of impressions that I have of this. And, but that it would be nice to proceed, you know, in a reasonable way. I mean, I don't know at this point how much Lee cares, you know, I mean, so, that it's, that I feel like something, you know, I would respond to the issue in an appropriate way. But right now, it just seems with the conflicting, impressions that I have of what was, of what he was putting forward, which you weren't even involved in at that time. You came into, yeah, I understand that, that's a difficult spot.
So,
And then again, I love this idea of honorific, because I'm thinking that, I mean, that to me says that if, that's or. By philanthropy, or
Can-
as an honorific.
let me just, on the honorific,
Mhm.
maybe 2 years ago, after John McCabe had started his arts
Oh.
endowment, he started an arts endowment for the library by donating. Actually, he kept saying, this is my last $10,000. And, then we were to use that interest from that for arts programs for kids so that they could take classes here. And basically free for the kids, and adults maybe paid a little. So right now, at that time, maybe the fund was 150,000. And we as a board were like, man, I mean, this is incredible. At that point, the Helmy Jensen room was still just the community, the big community room,
Right.
whatever we called it. And as a board, we decided to offer John that we wanted to name that room after him for everything he had done. So we put that to him and he refused it. So we have done the honorific, I guess you could say.
I'm so glad you brought that up now.
Yeah, and I don't know if
But that honorific was made after, because of
yes.
all the incredible donations he had
Exactly.
given to the library.
Exactly,
Still tied.
yeah.
Right.
So Deb, what did you have to say? You had your hand up.
I've got something. To me, the honorific so far has always been, I'm not gonna say this right, made to people who have made donations to the library. Am I
Right.
saying that right?
Yeah,
You know, I mean, to me, that's the honorific, is the fact that we decided to honor a person who had donated, in this case, the Helmy Jensen rooms. you know,
no, yeah.
And the bench,
No,
and
John McCabe,
McCabe,
he
that's
does the
true,
arts
McCabe,
endowment. We're
yeah,
just talking
right.
about the arts
Yeah,
endowment right now, because
that's what I meant to
others,
say, yeah.
others were specific. But we as a board offered that to John because of what he had donated.
That's how I'm reading the word honorific, and maybe that's not how it's meant, you know, but that's a perfect example is with John
You
McCabe.
want to hear what
That's the
Oxford
only-
has to say about it?
Okay,
That's the only one that I know of that we've done.
yeah,
But it involved 150,000.
okay.
an office or position given as a mark of respect, but having few or no duties. An honorific award for military valor, implying expressing high status, politeness, or respect. He will be able to put the honorific after his name. College graduate.
Okay,
Okay. Oh, wow, yeah.
So
so
it would be a new thing, and then the
Yes.
question is, how it can't.
remember,
I
we're
guess-
still under the motion to waive the fee.
Yes.
That's our motion.
Right. I
Okay,
know.
That's-
okay.
And I guess my question is, if we're saying, well. I mean, that does seem to open a door for us to possibly be able to do that, but then I guess my question is, if we're gonna do that. Choose to pick a section of the library and honor someone by naming it after them. Wouldn't we have to look at the whole, the whole community of people
Yes.
who would have the standing, like, I think of Sally Weaver, for instance, you know, who is also, done very much for this community, is also a poet, has also been involved with the library for many, many years. Do we just,
Well,
Yes,
yeah,
I know
so
what you're
while it
saying.
says that, it's opening the door to. Yeah, to
Yeah.
changing the policy, to making it even fine to do either way. You know what I mean? And it also then, why should anyone donate 5,000 if they don't
Right.
need to?
Mhm.
So then it opens it up to that. So I can see,
I wish we didn't need money, but we do.
So maybe reading on page 5, I don't know if this is, but 13.4, the second paragraph, named rooms and special areas. In general, meeting rooms and designated special use areas shall be named for an individual, family, civic organization, or corporation. The naming of such space generally requires a donation of a percentage of the cost of the area in proportion to the total cost of the facility or the project for the facility. The proportion shall be determined by the Public Library Board or capital campaign. See right there, the capital campaign is out, it's either or, as appropriate. Signage for named space shall be prominent and really identifiable. Lettering shall be scaled appropriate to the aesthetics of the room or the area so named. And then under that, they go further and they say that proportional, let's see. Name recognition for the non-public area may recognize donor by conspicuously displayed placard. Name recognition may be the name of the individual, family, civic organization, corporation, making a contribution in proportion to the total cost of facility. Proportional cost shall generally be less than a named or titled room. That amount shall be determined at the time of the project by the Petersburg Library Board. Placards shall be the standard size in periods throughout the public library. So there's some more to think about. That's in policy.
Yeah, so my reading of the policy is that we've got the policies that are governed by the naming that's governed by financial contributions, rooms, sections, buildings. And then there's this other section of the policies that has actually not been used by the board, but is allowed
What do you mean?
by honoring people.
that one sentence, are you referring to?
yeah,
And then-
By honoring people, and the section that you just finished reading, 13.4, actually expands on that a bit more of designating rooms to designating and naming rooms or recognizing. I mean, it's actually pretty broad, and that was the one that stood out the most to me when I was getting ready for today's meeting, because it allows us to recognize people who have, whether it be Sally or me or lots of folks who contribute, either volunteer time or, board members excluded, of course. But the, you know,
It's the word generally that opens the door.
Yeah, it does.
Where are you
It
seeing
does
that
open-
one? Where are we at?
Under 13.4 name rooms and special use
Yeah.
areas, it says the naming of such a space generally requires a contribution.
Yeah.
It doesn't say
There's
requires
go right there,
a contribution.
So it's the opportunity that we have to not necessarily waive, so I would just throw out that the motion that we're discussing is may not be what we want to decide. I'm not saying that yet.
Yeah.
But there is another way. But I just, again, I think I'm echoing what Lizzie's saying, is that it does open the door to then how do we do that? Do we do it on an annual basis? Do we do it on a decade basis? Do we do it every month? Do we start naming a significant contributor? You know, it does open up the door that we would then need to figure out how do we want to do that. I'm not opposed to recognizing people in the community.
Right.
I think that actually
Yeah,
promotes the
yes.
library and actually says, oh, you know, Lee or Sally or Jane or whoever is, you know, endorsing and contributing to, maybe I should go see what's going on. I mean, it helps promote the library. So it's not a bad thing, but it's not connected to the money. It's connected to them making a significant contribution to either the community, the schools, the library, something. The last thing I have to say about that is it would put a lot of, pressure is not the right word. It would put a lot of, attention needed, the board needing to pay a lot of attention and be willing to, as a group, put ourselves out there to judge, really. I mean, what if
right?
we open it up for nominations and there's 2 or 3 people?
Mhm.
And I'm staying away from Lee for a minute and I'm looking into the future. We do this again next year. We honor Lee, for instance, and open that door. And then next year, 3 people come in, very qualified people. How do we pick? So it would open the door for that possibility.
That's what I don't love about it.
And that would be hard.
That'd be very hard. It's very hard anyway. I mean, this.
Now, being a
feel-
judge, I actually don't find that to be too difficult, but, or as difficult, I think, as some people do, but it does, especially they're all community people who have contributed a lot and they probably all are worthwhile. So how do you choose?
Okay, can I, the word, you're using the word, we all are, honor a lot.
Mhm.
Now, honor may not mean waiving a fee or doing this or that. There are different ways to honor people. And do you honor somebody by doing what? You know, how, it doesn't necessarily have to be naming a section of of the library after them. We could honor somebody somehow. I mean, we're opening up a whole new way of doing things.
Right? Yes, exactly.
So I think waiving and honoring to me are 2 different things. So I'm still having a problem waiving the $5,000 because I think it makes everybody who has contributed the $5,000 into something, I don't know, I have a problem with it. Like, yes.
Barbara was saying there is, some precedence, thanks to the Friends of the Library for honoring but not naming, honoring local authors. There was a big event. Ian Short was involved. There was an event here. I'm remembering it, but I'm sorry. I don't remember the author,
Oh, right.
Friends have honored.
Yes,
A few, local folks.
Right,
but the friends are different than the library board.
So
Right.
there's something that, you know, that we have done in the past.
Right.
That's sort of separate from this process that we're doing right now. Enrichment.
Just a couple of things. If the plaque or whatever, the sign is not what you guys want, if we could use that to do it. And I would try and find somebody, to do a box. if I have time to do it. If that's an issue, I could probably find somebody to do it. Then, you know, I mean, if we didn't have to spend all of the money that dad had saved for his funerals and mom's funerals and all of that, we had to pay that down in order to put him in long-term care when he broke his hip. So, I mean, if we hadn't had to do that, I could easily have written a check for the $5,000. But what concerns me about this whole conversation about it being a financial donation to that degree, have you guys looked at and considered how many people out there who don't have the money but deserve it? You're basically just saying those people don't matter, is the way that comes across, if you see what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
You know, I mean, not everybody has $5,000 to say, here you go, we want a section or a room, or, you know, I mean, but they deserve it. And I think that part of it is also not being looked at, and that's really sad, because there's a whole lot of people out there, definitely, that 100% have spent money, time, everything else over years to help and do things, you know, like poetry classes and,
Yeah.
you know, all of that, that won't be recognized if you're so rigid on, you have to give $5,000. And I think that's really, really sad.
Well, I think the discussion here is we're talking about honoring your father and Sally, and how do we do that? How do we do that so that
Right, I'm just saying there's a breakdown financially in that. It doesn't mean that I'm any less important in what I put into, you know, Little League, and my husband and I did. Well, I mean, because we spent so much time that we can't afford to say, hey, I'm gonna, you know, fix the field for you. That doesn't equate to me. I think it's.
I see your point,
I do too.
very valid. I think our policy was entirely built around the whole capital campaign situation that we were faced with. Right?
Well, it looks like it, yeah.
This
So we could build
brought-
a library to honor the community.
Pardon?
Right.
So we could build a library to honor the community.
point,
a
yes.
Library
Yeah.
that, so, I mean, I think there's a lot of blending and intertwining here, what, you know, the issues that you're bringing up. This seems like the problem's getting bigger instead of smaller, so.
Yes.
I don't know, there's a point in time where, I mean, if you weren't there when it happened, like the way time moves on and the world works, I mean, that you lost that opportunity. So, I mean, we're not gonna rename stuff as time goes on and give everybody another chance. That kind of goes into a world of equality or something that's impossible to maintain.
Well,
And so I think in guidelines for honorific naming, the guidelines are here. Like but we're talking about a different motion, like you were saying.
Right,
Yeah.
yes.
So. Yeah, so what motion are we talking about? Are we
We're talking
talking?
about the one that's on the floor.
Yeah,
We're still
which is not the honorific.
Right.
Right.
So-
Okay,
Yes.
I have a couple questions
yeah.
for Gretchen. So when, David contacted Tara in 2021, had he already talked to you? And so when did he talk to you? Was it in May of this year? Because right here, May is when you came in and talked with Tara, so that's when you had the first communication or close to the first.
yeah, it's somewhere around there.
Of this year.
Yeah,
He brought it up to me like in maybe end of April
okay,
at some point, yeah.
okay,
And I had no idea anything
Right.
about it at that point.
right. So you're in an awkward position. It's hard because, you know, we have the communication with him to Tara. And basically nothing about what his letter is, that after, after he had that made and he told the long-term care that this is gonna be done and everything, that we were brought on board. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's awkward for you, it's awkward for us.
Yeah.
And we have these policies in place and it's just hard. I'm not sure. Anyway, so the motion on the floor, were you gonna read it to us, Mary Ellen?
Was I gonna read it?
I don't know, I thought you said I'll do the motion, but anyway,
I could read the motion if you want.
but I can, because you took it right, just so we can remember what we're considering. So the motion was to consider waiving the $5,000 requirement to name the poetry section of the adult nonfiction collection honored Lee Ribbick. So that's our motion that we're talking about. That's on the floor right now.
Can I make a clarification?
Yeah.
That you could close that motion, it could fail, and then another motion
Yes.
could be made
Yeah.
about an
Just-
honorific.
Just what I was,
But you know what I can say?
Yes.
That doesn't,
yes.
feeling that does not necessarily mean
Mhm.
That we don't.
eliminating this, it
Right.
means taking in, there's another path, like it
Right.
opens up the opportunity to take another path.
Yes.
I
Is that what you're saying?
I can also withdraw my motion.
And yeah,
Oh.
I double know the other ways to
Well,
do that.
but
If we're finished discussing it, we can either vote or I can withdraw. my
Right.
motion. With the permission of the person who seconded
Right,
it.
you can, yeah.
That's where that becomes important.
I know.
We both
With
have
it, you
to
or
say,
me.
okay.
Okay, I have a question on that particular subject. If you say, forget it, and then we all agree to forget it, and then another motion has to be made, is that
Yes.
correct?
Correct.
Doesn't have.
No.
No, but I think it would be a good idea to make another motion.
And we could look at it as an alternative
Yes.
path.
Yes,
And I have a suggestion that, but I think we're gonna get off
Yeah,
track if we
right.
don't just do either you withdraw or we vote. So,
So are we done with, is there any other discussion on this?
yeah, does anybody have anything burning that
I
we
think we
haven't
brought up
touched
all
on?
issues that I can think of and looked at it from all
Mhm.
sides.
So Madam Chair, with the permission of the person who seconded, which is one of these.
I agree.
Then I would ask that my motion be withdrawn.
Okay,
I'll second that. And I give permission for that.
Just the person who seconded.
yeah, all right. Okay, and so,
do we have to vote on that?
no,
No, because it's just been withdrawn.
and
Okay,
so what's going through my head right now is like, we're gonna discuss the honorific, but my feeling is that we have a lot to think about. And that maybe what we should do is what Tara had suggested to, that we, remind me to honor Lee during the summer until we can
yes,
have our fall meeting. Because, we need to, I don't know, that's my feeling, maybe other people are thinking,
Well,
maybe
I
someone
think-
just makes the one.
we need to honor him. How is his health?
Not good. Not good.
So we should, if we were to honor him somehow, we should do it sooner rather than later. Okay,
This has just opened a can of worms.
I
I
know.
feel like we can't really go against our policy or change it right away. until
Right.
We've really
No.
found something that works for that, but I really would like to do this in some way, in some form.
can't we just honor him? I mean, can we have a
Well, I
vote?
know what David wanted was for us to bring him down.
Yeah,
And, so, I mean, that's a process in itself.
Mhm.
He broke his hip several
Right.
months ago and he's not healthy enough to travel, let alone have surgery.
Right.
So, and it's not healing. So he's,
could he make it down here, do you think?
yes, he can make it down here.
So it could be done here, not up
Goes to
there.
the radio on my shows. right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's so cool.
they just kind of drug him, so.
Drug them up. Well, it comes to that.
Yes.
It's rough. I'm not laughing.
Yes, no,
I
it,
know.
You kind of have
it
to.
is kind of
take that.
comical for
We
somebody
have-
who doesn't like to take,
We have all been through this, yes.
just as a note, what we might wanna do in the future, and this, I'm not putting that off, I'm just
Yeah.
kind of putting it out there so I don't forget it, because I forget. Maybe look at what other libraries are doing beyond their capital campaigns when this sort of thing happens. And how.
And a
they
good one
tackle
would be
it.
Haynes, because I've been in their library and they have lots of places,
Horrific Places.
right, and plaques where they have these are the $10,000, and how they did it. So that would be a good one
Is
to,
all of this on your website too?
No, but I can give you a copy. Oh, actually, the
No.
packet's on the website.
The packet is.
Yeah, it's on the bird.
Is our policy
I've sent you-
generally, is our policy normally on the website?
Not this policy, some of our policies are more, they're more public facing ones.
Okay. This one more gets. into
So
the-
what-
It really should be, you know, that way, at least, I'm just saying this now after the fact, but, you know, to stop stuff like this and confusions from happening in the future.
Someone
If
who
it's-
wanted to donate. would have to
Yeah,
look it
I
up
mean,
to
if
read
it's,
it.
if it's directly
Mhm.
attached to the library, I mean, that's where people would go to look, a lot of people wouldn't know to go to the borough for that, they'd be looking for the library.
Okay, well, yeah, but to be fair, it's easy to contact the library. There's the email address, there's the phone number.
Yes,
And he didn't
he
back
didn't.
initially. But I mean, I just think it's fair to say David did not follow.
Exactly.
appropriate
Yes,
Right.
That's-
And now
that's
I think
he's
that's
emotionally
correct.
Blackmailed into doing something.
Oh, that's really harsh, Lizzie.
Well, it's a little bit that way. It's like, well, we made this sign and we told long-term care and we told Lee, and so.
right,
He
But
did
it's
not
like,
take the
well,
appropriate.
ouch, we.
I'm sorry, I really have a hard time with the word blackmail.
No, no,
Okay,
yes.
I'm sorry, it's just, it's very emotional
Mhm.
and it feels like so I'm sorry, maybe blackmail wasn't the right word, but it's emotional pressure that.
Yeah.
It's a lot of emotional pressure and I really like Lee and I really love his work and I do wanna honor him. But I also think that in an institution, a public institution, these policies and protocols are
Mhm.
super important.
Yeah.
And it can't just be, well, we already told him.
But we didn't tell him.
Somebody told him.
No,
He's been told because.
well,
that was
David
how the
did.
meeting
not,
Started was.
He
we'll
said
have to
somebody
tell
told
now.
him,
he
but
said someone told him
nobody
that
told
it
him.
did not come from the board or.
No,
I'm not saying we told him. I
Oh,
told somebody.
yes,
else.
oh,
you're right.
Somebody told, we already told him.
Oh,
That's what the board.
And
said.
is that accurate? I don't know. Because there's nothing in writing anywhere that says that. That's why you should always put everything in writing. It's my dad always said.
It was never David's intention to emotionally push anybody
Right,
into anything.
right.
I think he truly thought that it was okay
Mhm.
from the previous and didn't take into consideration, I'm just guessing, the
Yeah.
gap in time.
Right,
You know, he's not the type of person to try and guilt trip people. I think honestly, he didn't think about the
Yeah.
time gap, but I also do feel like I'm too emotional to sit in this meeting, so, because I mean, nothing I say at this point is gonna make a decision. I've said what I've said, and I think that that's enough for me, because that is very sensitive,
Mhm.
and comments like that are just a little more than I can take.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
So I'm
Yeah.
gonna go, and you guys make your decisions, because
one
I
more,
mean-
one more thing before you go. I feel that we need to honor Lee as soon as possible because of
Yeah.
his health situation. And whether it be cake and coffee in the Helmy Jensen Community Room, something where he can come to the library. We need to do something soon.
but here's the question, that has he been told about that and about the David's?
he has not seen it, no.
But has he been told the section's gonna be named after him?
Yes, I also, and I know that, the gals up at long-term care have told him that it has to go through a vote at this point, but,
And just,
in his mind, he did this with mom's Alzheimer's, and, you know, he doesn't, he has a hard time that just, how do I put this?
Mm.
That opens up the door
Mhm.
to, it's gonna happen, it's just like a clarification thing. Because he has a hard time differentiating what his heart is,
Mhm.
you know, so I mean, I literally had to go behind his back while he was having a toe removed. Putting my mom in long-term care because, you know, I
Yeah,
mean,
well,
it was just more than we could do it out. And he was very angry because in his mind, it's still just short-term memory loss.
mhm.
So in all fairness, yes,
He knows, David has told him.
he doesn't know it's David.
Well, okay, but someone's told him that the
Yeah.
section is gonna be named after
Oh,
him.
my.
And just to be fair, with Lizzie,
Yikes.
the first paragraph of his letter and the second was trying to guilt trip us.
Yes.
I feel also,
Yeah.
not blackly emotional, but he was trying to guilt trip us. And it's unfortunate that he chose that path instead of, but anyway, it's not on you.
No.
It's not on you at all, Gretchen.
Yeah, that's
So
kind
we
of the
just-
difference of, I guess, people in big cities as opposed to small
Probably,
town.
yeah.
He wouldn't understand the ramifications of that.
right.
Would it make a difference to him if we did something to honor him, but not this? Would that help the situation if we were to honor him in some way? Would it be good for him? I'm
For
just thinking
Dad
of,
or for
yeah,
Dad?
for Lee. I'm
Yeah,
just thinking
we're not
of your
thinking about
dad.
David, we're thinking about
I'm,
your
thi-
dad.
yeah,
I'm
It's
sorry,
your
I'm
dad.
not thinking about David.
I'm thinking,
I
no,
understand.
I'm not either. I'm thinking of Lee, because we need to, I feel we need to do something for him, but if that just makes it more awkward and difficult, then we need to know that.
Well, there was a suggestion.
What?
Tara, what?
Is it not written in?
I can paraphrase.
Yeah,
what-
good.
I believe what Alex is referring to.
Yeah,
So, back when you came to speak with me, I sent David an email. And we went back and forth a couple of times and it's in the packet, just indicating that, yeah, I mean, timeliness is super important.
Yeah.
I really value these so much. With a temporary display of the artwork and, you know, poetry and potentially even, so I didn't mention the thing about the friends having, you know, cake and punch, but I
Yeah.
think that's a great idea.
Yeah,
Could we do that? Just so that we have that moment.
Could we
That
put
doesn't mean to be special.
all of his stuff up, you know, in the community room, all his works that we have
And we
with
could
the
have
sign.
Volunteers do readings.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, something like that.
Really love
We,
it.
yes,
You know,
Would
in
that
all
work?
honesty, and I really. What the hell for this guy, whatever. Even if it was like you guys are talking about and just have a moment of we're hanging the plaque, even if it comes down later, you know what I mean? Just so that he has that visual, since he can't
Mhm.
see, knowledge that it happened, and then if it comes back down in, you know, a week after people see something in the paper and they wanna come up and see it,
Hmm.
then pull it back down, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to that, and I would understand that, I mean, I would rather it stayed up, or that I had a box commissioned to put up. But, if that's the only way it will pass through, that way it's not crushing him, and he feels good that people realize that he did do a lot of
Yeah.
good.
Oh, I
And I think
absolutely think we should honor, absolutely.
And I
Yeah,
think
just
it would be a
matter of
good start, I mean, it's something that we could actually decide today.
Yes,
Yeah.
And we could actually put it in the frame of the board wants to start honoring
yes,
folks on an annual basis. And we could just be vague about that, because we need time to actually think about what it is that we want to do
right,
and
right.
how we want to do it, but what you all just described about having a reception and readings or a little display over by the fireplace or something where the picture that got commissioned could sit and, or wherever it is.
Yeah,
And letting then the public know, the community know that we are going to be looking at, doing this on an annual
Yes.
basis.
Right, it shouldn't be a one-off,
Right,
Right,
right, because that's kind
and it
of.
may not all look like this, but it look
Right.
like something.
Yeah.
Because, yeah,
I'm not sure if that actually even requires library board approval. You know, we have.
We just do it.
Yeah,
Yeah, just do it.
You guys actually have the ability, we don't need a policy necessarily, we can just have the friends do that at their discretion. Because it's not a permanent naming,
Mhm.
Right.
issue, we can separate it from that
Right.
permanent naming, complicated.
It's something that friends could do.
It's something that can be
Yeah.
done without the library board changing policy or
Mhm.
making a decision. So, just put that out there, as maybe a soft option to.
So we might wanna look at spelling out the
Yeah.
wiggle,
I do think the policy.
what did you call it, the jiggly?
We go over
The wiggle
yeah.
room that is in there.
Yeah.
Right, and it
And
would be defined by library.
I would really want to push you guys to consider the fact that, like I said, there's a lot of people in the community that should be honored and should be having plaques and stuff up and can't afford $5,000. So maybe there's wiggle room in the price of it, you know, I mean, if you're talking just a plaque, a small plaque,
Oh,
you
the
know, it's
fish,
$1,000.
the fish wall is exactly what we do there. That's $100.
Mhm.
And that's what we did. You know, we have a fish on the wall.
Yeah,
So one thing with what you said, Gretchen, that when you said about putting this up and then taking it down,
No,
we can't do that
No.
because like it says in B, we have to actually formally accept that work of art. And then we would have to keep it and display it, but that, I don't know where we would, that's a whole separate thing from.
but you can't word it as, you know, it's accepted for
mm-mm.
X amount of time.
No, no.
I don't know, I don't know.
But it's
Maybe.
an honorary, just have it in the room.
Friends of the library.
Yes.
For him, that can certainly be.
That can be in
Right,
the
just,
room.
I was just saying that.
We're not-
About accepting it, you know, I mean, we have to, the library board to
Yeah.
do it would have to accept it.
Right.
Vote on it and all of that, yeah.
So I had a conversation with another person involved in libraries about honorifics, and what she mentioned is the trend now in namings is for a period of time. Because
Oh.
what's happening is people are putting their names on things, buildings, sports arenas, different this and that, and then in 50 years, nobody knows who that person was. Or they find out horrific things about the person, like what's going on in the South with the statues and stuff.
Right,
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
so anyway, apparently the new trend in the naming world.
but that
is-
can be in our discussion in the fall.
That's
Right,
another.
That's a big,
that's-
that's just
another-
throwing
yeah.
something out there. So
Right.
we
We need
kind of have
to
expand our
we need to stay
concept,
focused. We're all, yeah,
plus retalk the whole endowment thing,
Yeah.
right.
revisit.
I
that.
really appreciate that everybody has stayed past when we usually, so let's
Yeah.
focus on what we need to do here.
Okay,
And so we're not considering the motion. We don't need to make a motion if we're just gonna go to the, friends,
how many friends
because
are here right now?
2, 3.
Three.
I'm the vice president of Friends, she's the treasurer,
Secretary.
treasurer,
Sue and
and Denise,
Denise.
Denise is a treasurer.
yeah,
I'm not.
so,
Denise.
So
yeah.
for this agenda, then I would ask that the second motion under new business be tabled.
Okay.
Oh, yes,
And then it doesn't come back up unless somebody asks. it.
Yes, okay.
okay.
So we have to finish this.
So, right, so, Deb's, motion is to did you say
Table.
table?
Table
Yes.
the.
Table B, which is the acceptance of the artwork,
Uh-huh.
and there was a second. So any discussion?
It actually doesn't.
We don't
If
need-
we're following Robert's rules, it doesn't get discussion.
Oh, it does?
It's table.
It's
Oh, I'm sorry, oh,
I don't.
on
think
B?
it's done.
And
I don't
something's
okay, oh, I
changed.
see, you used the
It's
word
set
table,
aside.
I'm sorry.
Done, okay. Okay,
All right,
but
everybody.
since
How
you're
does everybody
here,
Feel about, so does anybody else have one more burning thing? they need
yes,
to
I
say?
do. And that is, when are we gonna do this and what's a good day for Lee to be able to come to the library?
That's what Friends of the Library.
I know.
Right, that is.
Since she's here, I
I
want,
know, but let's
Yeah.
wait, if we don't
I
have
move
any
that we-
more board
I move that we
things.
adjourn
yes,
this board of the library board meeting.
I second.
All those in favor?
aye, okay.
Opposed? Okay.
Okay.
Now.
Now, we can ask you that